Let's talk all things Michael Jackson right here on Beyond the Screen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Screen. I'm your host, Ryan, and with me, as always, is the illustrious Jacob Holtzclaw. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about what everyone's talking about. It's Michael Jackson. I cannot believe, I mean, I guess I could because we've been talking about this for like a year, that the MJ documentary is going to be coming out, but that it's this much of a zeitgeist in the like pop culture after all these years, after he's been gone, nearly 20 years since Michael Jackson passed away. Here we are still talking about the old king of pop with his latest biopic. To start, before we do anything else, we're gonna obviously do our normal first segment, which is box office. Our main topic today and our second segment will be Michael Jackson. But I do want to talk about my favorite thing ever. When you say Michael Jackson, I don't think about his music. I don't think about his controversies. I think about what I'm about to show you. And I cannot wait to show you guys. For those who are unacquainted, because I asked my friends here, Emily's behind the screens, Jake here with me, if they had seen this. And I'm shocked with how much they're both online, like I am, that they hadn't noticed this. So bear with me for my audio listeners. We'll describe it. This is one of my favorite videos of all time on the internet.
Michael Jackson, keep going. We're still going out. Yeah. Can we free? Oh, damn. We free. We free.
Why is he there? Why is he doing that? The best part about that video is there's no context. Why is he there in a Kia in the snow in whatever state? But the funniest thing is at the beginning of that video, you don't hear it. He starts by doing the absolute best impression. He goes tee-hee, like perfectly at the beginning as they're pushing him out of the snow. When he gets out and he throws the snow and they're cheering, "We freed Michael Jackson!" That's one of the funniest things. And it's just it's funny because it's just absurd and it's out of nowhere. But that is one of my favorite videos online. And anytime you say Michael Jackson, literally that's what I think of.
Well,
thank you, Jake.
you're a special creature.
I know. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. However, you're here for film news. And let's get into film news. Let's start with our first segment, which is always our box office news. Let's go over this past week in terms of not only what the films did at the box office from Friday through Sunday, but we always start with our box office predictions. We end each week by going over and saying, hey, this is what we think the top 5 will be next week. Let's see how we did. Roll the results here, Emily. Thank you very much. I started this week going 4 of 5. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, with a pretty accurate number this week. I've had 1 5 of 5 thus far, coming off of a 3 of 5 last week. We're continuing a hot start to the season. I had Michael, Super Mario Galaxy, Project Hail Mary, Lee Cronin's The Mummy, and Mother Mary. 1 through 5 was my prediction, and I got 1 through 4 correct, bringing my season total to 18. That's right. If you're new to our show, the way we do our predictions every single week, we keep track of however many we got right. We add that to a season total, and by the end of the season, which is always at the Oscar ceremony, so next March, we will crown a victor. We will crown a winner, whether that's us or we'll get to the last of the other of us. Then secondly, Jake was our second of 3 predictions. He got 3 of 5 correct, getting Michael, Super Mario Galaxy, and Project Hail Mary as his 1 through 3. He followed it out with Mother Mary at 4 and a re-releasing Fight Club at 5, getting, again, 3 of 5, bringing his season total to 16. And lastly, again, I said the other of us, that would be who we call TJ. That is just Claude. Yes, we're fighting a bot. We want to dominate. We want to make sure that we put the bot in its place. And, well, he put us in ours because he got a perfect 5 of 5, predicting Michael, Super Mario Galaxy at 2, Project Hail Mary at 3, The Mummy at 4, and The Drama at 5, bringing his season total to 17. If you're keeping track, I lead the season total with 18 correct, TJ's in second with 17, and Jake is in third with 16. So we're all very close for the season totals. And another little detail that I want to make sure that we're not going over, we are not using, me and Jake that is, we're not using other analysts, we're not using other predictory, and whatever, to help us decide what we're guessing from the last week. We're using only our common sense and the knowledge that we bring in from the previous week. So that is, as long as we've been doing this, as long as we've been predicting, we're trying to follow trends, whether that's genre, whether that's what what type of film we've seen, whether it's animation or live action, how they've performed in the past, where you're trying to bring that into the new week. So we're completely going in blind, and TJ is not blind because he's an AI. So he is using all of the internet. And shockingly, he's not blowing us out of the water. He is either very accurate or very inaccurate. In fact, last week he got like 2 of 5. So it'll be fun. It'll be a fun way to round out our season come next May to see which one of us became the box office king. But with that out of the way, let's give you that top 1 through 5 in correct order. If you didn't remember, again, TJ got it correct, but let's go over those top 5 again. Those are Michael at 1, Super Mario Galaxy at 2, Project Hail Mary at 3, Lee Cronin's The Mummy at 4, and The Drama from A24 at 5. Let's go back up to Michael, and let's talk about some of those numbers really quickly. So again, Lionsgate and Universal's Biopic finishes first. We don't normally do this, what we're about to do, but we're going to breeze by Michael for the time being because that box office results, that's important to our main segment. So we're not going to give away a certain amount of details before we get to the story. However, just so you know, it outperformed what it was predicted to do at the box office by almost double, and it is a record-setting debut for the genre, for the biopics. So that's where we'll leave it, but it definitely dominates in its first week, starting at number 1. Coming in second is Super Mario in its 4th weekend in theaters. After a month, it still pulls in $21.2 million domestically, and its global tally is now at $831 million. This is more than likely going to be the first $1 billion film of 2026, if I remember correctly. So we'll see. Again, the family-friendly CGI animation does wonders at the box office, and its rewatchability is super high. Fans are loving this film. Critics didn't really like it. However, again, as always, the family-friendly animations always do very well. Case in point, Illumination's Super Mario Galaxy. Finishing third is Project Hail Mary in its 6th weekend in theaters, holding on to a top 3 spot for the 6th straight week, earning $13.2 million domestically. The film finally pushes past the $600 million earned globally. So a huge victory still for Amazon, for Ryan Gosling. This is a film that will continue to do well in the coming weeks, whether it won't be top 3, but it will still hold on to that top 5 for probably another couple of weeks. Mind you, in its 6th weekend in theaters, after losing IMAX screens, which is what propelled it to such high standards early, it only dropped 36% in ticket sales, which is a number you don't see. That is crazy this low. Like, the only films that match that are like Disney or Marvel or something that, you know, like, this is crazy that a Amazon MGM, Ryan Gosling led, essentially solo film with a puppeteer is currently dominating and only dropped 36% in its 6th week in theaters.
Who is Puppeteer eligible for?
Well, we'll get to that later, but James Ortiz, he's eligible for a certain award, which is very important to this show, but that'll be in our 3rd segment. The great foreshadowing. We will most definitely be talking about Mr. Ortiz and or his eligibility for a certain award and or not. Anywho, 4th on our top 5 from this past weekend is Lee Cronin's The Mummy in its 2nd weekend in theaters. The horror drop strikes again. That's right. If you're new to the show, we always kind of talk about this. The horror genre is a front-loaded genre. There's another one that matches it. Anime is usually a front-loaded genre, which what we say when we say that, what we mean is its first weekend, maybe 2, it will make a ton of money. If it's going to make money, a majority of its money. Because after that first wave, week 1 or 2, it's going to drop off, and it's going to drop off hard. Case in point, Lee Cronin's The Mummy drops 58% in ticket sales, only earning $5.6 million domestically. Its global tally is now up $66 million. So it's still earning, but not great for a film. Again, this is Warner Brothers, the 2nd straight dud from Warner Brothers. We talked about it a little bit last week, but we'll go ahead and wrap out our top 5 here. Finishing 5th in its 4th weekend in theaters is The Drama, holding on to that 5th spot for all it's worth. This is the 2nd straight week that it's been 5. It's actually jumped Yumi and Tuscany. The Zendaya and Pattinson-led dark comedy grossed $2.7 million domestically. Again, still earning well. This is one of A24's top earners, and it's shocking that this genre, again, a dark comedy, is doing so well, but here it is. The film pushed past the $100 million globally this past weekend. So again, a high earner for A24, now sitting at $101.8 million earned overall. Other films from our top 10 throughout the box office: Hopper's leapfrogs Yumi and Tuscany to retain the 6th spot in our top 10, and Mother Mary, which me and you predicted after a wide release from A24, which was on a hot streak with The Drama, starring, Anne Hathaway.
Mm-hmm.
We thought it would finish a lot higher. It finished 9th.
Yeah.
Poor word of mouth and poor critic response.
Not a big
with
open either.
68% on Rotten Tomatoes, which isn't terrible. We'll talk about Rotten Tomatoes a lot today, but poor word of mouth, not great for Mother Mary, and the A24 next endeavor finishes 9th. Jake, now that we've kind of looked throughout the top 5 and beyond, what do we think? What else catches our eye? What do we think about this past weekend?
Fight Club only opening to 700 and sitting at 17. Stolen. Yeah. Give it a 3,000. Guaranteed top 5.
So it earned 219,000 in 700 theaters. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I don't think it'd do much better, even if it had 3,000.
Oh, please. Come on.
What do you think it would have earned if it was in 3,000 theaters? I guess that's kind of where I'm at. Is like I don't know. Like I love Fight Club. I don't think there's that much of an audience for it theatrically.
I think it'd have got 1 million.
Well, yeah, of course, 1 million, but that would have put it where?
7.
Not even
not
barely
even
10th.
Yeah.
Barely 10th. Maybe not
Stolen.
even that. Stolen. Had so
We've
much
got
money.
Strange Journey, the story of Rocky Horror.
Oh, I bet that was good.
I think that's is that a documentary? I'm not sure. Sorry. I think it is. I think it's a documentary on the making of it.
Very cool.
But
Who's
very
that
nice,
by?
very nice.
Did you see a distribution?
Magenta Light Studios.
I
29.
think we might have heard a little bit of them. One that's interesting to me when I look through our top 10 here is one that was not on any of our radars, I don't think. It's 8th. Over Your Dead Body. 1.4 million earned domestically in one weekend. It is from IFC Pictures. The box office mojo synopsis is, quote, a dysfunctional married couple retreats to a secluded cabin to repair their relationship, but each secretly plots to murder the other.
It's got Jason.
You must
How I Met Your Mother.
You must say Jason Statham, is it?
No.
That is yeah, that is who that is though. Hold on, now I gotta look up How I Met Your Mother.
Siegel? Is it Siegel?
Yes.
Siegel?
Yes, Siegel.
Siegel. And then Timothy Olyphant. Olyphant. He's the guy from Justified.
Yeah.
And I guess he was Hitman. Apparently. From 2007. 2007 Hitman. Come on, man. Come on, man.
I'm sorry that I'm not super caught up on my 2007 Hitman movie. That's my bad. I've not seen. Name every movie. You like movies? Name every movie.
Name every movie. It's like, I've seen every movie. It's like, oh, have you seen this like super odd German 1920s? Like, yes, I've seen every movie.
Of course. I've seen them all.
The guy who eats every fruit, right?
Yeah.
Oh, have you had a passion fruit? It's like, yes. I've had every fruit.
Would you trust us to be your host this week if we didn't see every movie ever made? Yes, I've seen every movie. No, but in all seriousness, some interesting, but the thing is the biggest takeaway from this past week is it was kind of as we expected. Like, we've had a slow roll of it thus far in terms of major productions coming out outside of what we started the year with, right? Like, obviously Project Hail Mary, Hoppers, but we've had a lot of rollover. And this week and next week, we're going to see, obviously we saw Michael, but next week we're about to get into our predictions. That's the other one that's coming out that everyone's talking about. And there's still we have the summer slate, the blockbuster slate coming out this year. And we're up by a lot year to date earnings wise. Like, it's like 20 something million compared to last year. So the box office is up overall, but we're seeing these where it's like more predictable in terms of what the box office is going to look like. There's a lot of layover. Like, we're going to see it again next week where really, you could just insert the new big release, the one big release for next week, and then slide everything else down and maybe have a 5th place, right? But 2 through 4 more than likely will stay the same. But we'll see. And with that out of the way, we're talking about predictions. Let's get into it. So, Jake, lead the way. You got me this week. You beat me to the predictions first, so I had to follow you, which is always difficult. Tell me about what you predicted and why.
I got Devil Wears Prada 2 at the top. Shout out my moms. She might go see it.
Shout out my moms for Devil Wears Prada.
I mean, what isn't that another is that Anne? Is that Anne Hathaway?
Yeah, it is Anne Hathaway.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. And then Meryl.
Meryl
My
Streep.
lady Meryl. Oh, there's somebody else. Sorry, I have to look it up. I think it's Stanley Tucci. I was like, is it Stanley? There's another guy that kind of like reminds me of Stanley, but I don't think it is Stanley.
I was gonna say Stanley Tucci, but for some reason,
yeah, my man Stanley.
it's odd that this
Emily Blunt.
It's odd that this film is seen as highly as it is because you've seen online where people are talking about how it just looks dead color wise compared to the original.
Yeah.
Does Devil's Wear Prada? I know it's a cult classic, and it is literally the Devil Wears Prada. Do we really think it's going to earn that much?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I know you do.
I'll tell you what a certain other non-physical entity thinks it will make. But yep. Then I got Michael. Obviously, I don't think you can come off a 97 million estimation and not make second place with nothing else coming out. Super Mario Galaxy, Project Hail Mary, knocking them down. And then, because I asked Ryan his opinion on number 5, that knocked out my other one, I was like, I don't know, could be this one.
Mm-hmm.
I got this Hokum movie that he says is good or going to be good or has a lot of traction behind it. It's a horror movie, and I don't know anything about it, but Ryan says it's got a lot of hype. So I went with that over Animal Farm. I think Animal Farm's coming out, and I put it higher because of what Ryan said.
Yeah, well, I'll get to Hokum versus Animal Farm versus like other returners like the Drama or whatever and Hoppers, because like we'll get to that 5th spot, but we'll go through very quickly my 1 through 4. Michael at 1 actually, and the Devil's Wear Prada at 2. I have those flipped mainly because when you take a look at usually how these biopics do, they're more in tune with, not quite to the same extent. They're a lot like their animation counterparts where they hold a lot of a holdover. Like audiences tend to go back and see it twice. And the only reason that I'm saying that and I'm confident with Michael being one this next week, this is Michael Jackson.
Oh,
like his following is still as strong as it's ever been. We've got people literally singing and dancing in theaters to this film as it's out.
We had people singing and dancing in the
no.
a bunch of different movies.
Well, I mean, we've seen this last year, Minecraft, and it was K-pop Demon Hunters, I think was the other one when the Netflix put it out. But Wicked was the other one. Well, that was a year ago or now going on 2 years ago, which is crazy. But yes, there are films that have that happen, but those films usually go on to have a lot of rollover. The same thing, like all 3 of those films that you named had a lot of continuity in the box office. So I think Michael will follow through with that. I think that we'll see people who go back and see it a second time, people who hadn't gotten to see it this first weekend because a lot of people were going to the theaters. So you have a second week, kind of like a second swarm, if you will, from those who hadn't seen it and those who want to go see it again. I think it will drop, but if it drops, dude, it might be in the 60 million range from 97. You know, like maybe 65-ish. Do we think The Devil's Wear Prada's 2 will make more than 60 or 65 million? It has to make close to 70 in order to beat.
Yep.
I don't think it will. I just don't.
Yep.
I think it'll hit maybe closer to 50 if it's big. And I know there's a lot of people. I'm not that audience, so I'm not one who's like, "I never invited you. It Hathaway and Queen Meryl." Like, I understand why you're hyped for that, right? I understand, and I understand the cult classic behind it, and I am not doubting that audience, right? That's why I have it. That's why I'm putting it at 2nd. It's a good movie. Like, that's why it's at 2. I'm not doubting them. But when in comparison to what it's going up against, in a normal weekend, let's say it released 3 weeks ago, it probably would have been 1. But not this week. I think that we're going to see The Devil's Wear Prada's 2 going down to 2nd. Super Mario retains its 3rd place spot with Project Hail Mary right behind it. And then I have Hokum at 5. The reason I have Hokum at 5 is exactly what we were talking about. When we compare it to The Drama, that film's on its way out. It barely made 2.7 million, right? Then you compare it to Animal Farm. Critics now, you got to keep in mind, critics do not speak for common man. So you have to be very cautious with how the reception is versus, like, it's very deceptive to run into a critic response. Critics did not like it. They felt like it was a dumbed down story of what was a George Orwell classic, right? The problem is while it is an animation and while it's dumbed down, and we talked about like there is this hype for animated films and specifically family films because there's that rewatchability and you're selling more than just 1 or 2 tickets. You're selling for the whole family. And that's why animations do well. However, this film hasn't really been marketed very well. At least I'm probably not the demographic to be seeing it, but I've not seen a lot of marketing for this where I've seen a ton for Hokum. I've not seen a lot of positive response to this film, especially its animation. Its animation just kind of looks lackluster. It kind of looks average. And there's not a lot, I think, that audiences go in, especially with animation. I feel like there's now a standard that people want to hit. And I just don't think when I look at it, I don't think they've hit that because it's a quick cash cow film. It is directed by Andy Serkis. And I've seen a lot of critics be like, what are you doing, Andy Serkis? Like, why? Because Andy Serkis is like, he's someone who makes high quality content. And so it's odd for him to make something like this that, again, that critics didn't really seem to hit with. So that was kind of their response. Again, I think Hokum, I think that with the critical response, I think that with the early test screening response, with the great marketing for it, Neon is really good at marketing. I think that we will see that film slip in as a top 5, and I just don't think that old George Orwell story that is already dumbed down in an animation style that not a lot of people connect with, I think that you're going to see it suffer. And so it will probably debut like 6, maybe 8. And so we'll see it in that range-ish. But yeah, that's my top 5. Jake, tell me about TJ.
Let's see here. Same as me, which means I think we're both going to be 5 of 5. Yep. We are the same.
Can you reiterate what your top 5 was?
Yes. Devil Wears Prada 2, obviously. That's like a given. Come on. Michael at 2, Super Mario Galaxy at 3, Project Hail Mary at 4, and Hokum at 5. It believes The Devil Wears Prada 2 will make 70 to 105 million.
Isn't that nuts? That's crazy. I was right on the money with that, by
88.
The way. I was right on the money with that, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll take that. That's a dub in and of itself. I should get a point for that. No, I'm just kidding.
Nope. So I'll tell you what I thought Michael would get last week was the high was 88 million.
And every analyst was wrong. Like we'll talk about that deeper in the next segment. But
so
no one was right about what it would earn.
It puts Michael at a 50% loss as normal.
Ooh. We're talking horror film level of loss. I really think it's missing out.
That's a normal loss. Give me a break.
Usually it's like 40-ish is the normal, I would say. If you get closer to 50, I would say that's probably where you start losing people. Like that's when you're starting to hit downhill. 50 is not abnormal, but I think that for films like this, if you lose anything more than 40%, I think that you've had a big drop off. Uno momento, he says. He's looking at the average percentage that films drop.
I will find what the domestic for Bohemian Rhapsody was.
But again, we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next segment. That film earned half of what this film did in its debut.
Yeah. Just saying. I think
that's just domestic. It earned half of what it did domestic, not global.
Got a 50% drop on Super Mario Galaxy at 11. Project Hail Mary at 7.5, and Hokum at 5.
Interesting. I don't think it will drop 50%.
And those are middled ranges. So it has a low and a high, and it tells you what it thinks it'll middle.
There's something else too. I feel like that so the way that we do our main segment, which is what we're about to cut to right now, but Jake doesn't really know a ton about what I'm going to read to him. Jake is coming in mostly blind to our main segment. Like he knows what's going on, but like I do the research and I display it to him and Jake gives his candid, natural response. So I feel like there might be things that I know about like the fan response to Michael that I feel like maybe you and TJ are going in blind to, and that might be my bad. But I don't know. I feel like with the way that these fans love this film and that these fans love him, I think that it will stick around. I don't think it'll drop more than 40%. I would be shocked if it dropped. If it dropped 45, it'd be like, okay. But if it dropped 50, I would be shocked. I really would be. I think it'll be closer to... Sorry, go ahead.
I saw one guy who was like a big fan of Michael, had like a notebook full of the inaccuracies.
I saw this too. Yep. He still said it was a good movie. He said it was 7 out of 10 at the end of that, but he did have like a full review, like all the problems with it, which again, we'll dissect a few of the...
What could possibly be wrong?
You mean to tell me a movie about glorifying a person, they might have taken out all the bad stuff? No way. Nuh-uh. We'll talk a little bit about that coming up after the break. Again, we talk all things Michael right after this. Welcome back to Beyond the Screen. You've made it to segment 2, which is always our major news segment. So, the main story of this past week, obviously, is Michael. We're going to talk about it, literally going to beat the dead horse today, because it's just going to be all we talk about for the majority of our show. However, that's what's going on, again, in the zeitgeist that is pop culture. So let's talk about audiences versus critics, the various envisionings of entertainment's most polarizing figure. Let's dive deep into the constantly evolving Michael Jackson drama. We have a ton of sources here today. Usually our main segment has about 2 segments. We've got 5 today. So there's a lot of different pieces and a lot of different information we're going to throw at you. And I apologize to Emily because she had to put it together in a lot of quotes because we got a lot of different people who say a lot of different things. So let's dive deep. Starting off in its debut, Lionsgate's Michael earned $97 million domestically and over $217 million worldwide, all without opening in Japan, where the pop star was revered almost more than he was here in the States. So the film still got a lot of money left to make globally, at least. These marks earned Michael the title of being the biggest opening for a biopic ever, beating Straight Outta Compton's $60 million and Bohemian Rhapsody's $51 million openings, and making the film the second largest opening of the year, only behind Super Mario Galaxy. A month ago, original tracking had the biopic opening to around 50 to 60 million, a number that it more than smashed. According to Lionsgate motion picture chair Adam Fogelson, quote, "You don't deliver this number unless you're seeing huge numbers across every conceivable demographic. They're clearly having a blast, and that bodes well for a lovely multiple," which is an interesting way to phrase that. And what could be the first film in a series chronicling Michael Jackson. I'm going to say Jordan at some point because I'm a sports head, so forgive me when I say Michael Jordan. But
Not the same guy.
chronicling Michael Jackson's entire life, we see Michael's early days of stardom. Portrayed by his nephew Jafar Jackson, the film follows the controversial figure from his early life, showing his early days in the Jackson 5, his complicated and abusive relationship with his father, who's portrayed by Coleman Domingo, and the film ends with Jackson at the height of his career, which is not where we started when the film was originally pitched and started to film, but we'll get into that in a minute. As outlined by the dailies, the film's success is all the more impressive when you take into account the massive amount of reshoots the film had to do very late in its production, due to one important and initially overlooked factor. In the original script, the story went much deeper into Jackson's life, with the central conflict being a dramatized version of the 1993 child molestation lawsuit levied against Jackson. The only issue, big question mark here, the only issue, as Variety describes, quote, "Those sequences had to be removed after producers discovered, late in the thing, mind you, after producers discovered a clause in the settlement with the young accuser that barred the depiction or mention of him in film or television." We talked about this in like November, or maybe it was earlier than that, maybe like September when we first saw the initial trailer for this. How do you just lose track of that? How do you get how far? This is the climax of the film. This is the third act of this film. You're filming, and I know they're not filmed in chronological order. I'm not trying to say that. But you're filming the most important part of what was the original script. And then after you have it filmed, you realize, oh, wait a minute. That's illegal. How do you not know that from the beginning? You're working with the Jackson estate. How does nobody know that? That is where I kind of lie with that. It's like, that's insane to me that no one thought to look at that until that point. But anyway, because of that overlooked factor, this led to a scatter. As the third act had to be entirely reshot, the story reworked, and around $15 million added to the film's budget, pushing the overall production cost to over $200 million. The film now ends at the height of his popularity during the 1988 Bad Tour. So everyone's heard, "I'm bad." Yeah, that we're there. That is where the film just drops off. Now, what you've probably heard over the course of the past week, let's talk about the divide between critics and audiences. So let's start with the critics, because that's how it came out in chronological order last week, right? The film released on Friday. By Tuesday, there was just a swarm of critic reviews, and they were awful to start the week. Again, critics were now infamously very harsh on the Antoine Fuqua directed musical, with early reviews placing the film as low as 27% on the tomato meter through the initial 48 reviews. By Wednesday, it had a 27%. As Deadline outlined earlier in the week, outlets such as themselves, Screen Rant, USA Today, all held rather, or like some of them did have positive reviews, I'll say, with each stating, quote, so this is from Deadline, Jafar's casting might have seemed a bit too all in the family, but the fact that he doesn't do his own singing didn't bother me, because this guy channels Uncle Michael in uncanny ways and simply tells this performance with all the right dance moves and sharp dramatic talent to make us believe Michael Jackson is once again with us. Screen Rant called the film masterful, and going on to USA Today, quote, the film reminds the generations who witnessed Jackson's ascension in real time of the extent of his singularity and educates younger audiences about the magnitude of his talent and scope. So, despite that 27%, I did want to outline and point here, not all of it was terrible. As you just heard, 3 pretty major outlets were like, this isn't bad. For what it is, it's not bad. However, overwhelming majority hated it. We'll start with critic legend Roger Ebert. If you've never heard of Roger Ebert, this guy is infamously very harsh on films, and he's been doing this for like, I would say probably 4 decades now. He's been doing it for a very long time. Anyone who's ever gone to film school or heard, like, who knows anything about like what is the central hub of film, Roger Ebert was at one point in the dead center of it. His reviews could make or break films back in probably the 70s and the 80s, right? He's still at it. As old as he is, he's still going. And he had this to say about Michael, quote, in every cloying moment, you can notice their fingerprints all over this plastic jukebox picture. Michael has already caused many to question what's missing. Janet Jackson, who indeed doesn't exist in this, quote, universe, and any reference to the singer's legal trouble, though that bankrupt morale and narratively cowardly positioning by Fuqua certainly doesn't help either. So, again, very harsh from the legend that is Ebert. The BBC called it, quote, a bland and barely competent daytime TV movie, which, oh, it's just that would, if as a director, that would like stab me in the heart if someone was like, it's bland, barely daytime TV. IGN, which now we're not calling IGN the most reputable of reviews because they notoriously do some bad reviews.
Yeah, their video game reviews are really good though.
Oh, sometimes.
Sarcasm.
Yeah, I was about to say, not really. But they reviewed the film. They were ones that hated it, and they said, quote, it's astonishing to note just how short the movie falls of the genre's already low expectations. In fact, it does the one thing no production should be able to. It makes Michael Jackson, the king of pop and one of the most controversial, electric, groundbreaking figures of the 20th century, utterly boring. And IndieWire said, quote, glossy, sanitized, and surprisingly dull. Now, after 150 reviews, the score has jumped up to a not that much better 39%. So, critics, get this out of here. We don't like it. So, in short, if we're going to kind of take like a consensus of what the majority of these critics are saying, they praise Jafar for his rendition of his uncle. They say he was really good. Yet they slam the film for being, quote, sanitized in terms of its history, its rendition of history. It's very much so, as they say, they wiped clean all the negatives and they only painted what a specific view of the character in the film of the real person, right? So again, Jafar, praise. The story did not. They very, very, very specifically, a lot of people said that. But the audiences, as we had outlined at the beginning, loved this movie. According to Screen Rant, quote, on the other hand, audience reviews overwhelmingly praise Michael as emotional, nostalgic, and entertaining, especially Jafar Jackson's uncanny performance and the music-driven spectacle. Fans call it a masterpiece, and it captures MJ's magic. So, I think that's a pretty good way to outline how fans responded, especially those who reviewed it, as the film has a 97% on the popcorn meter with over 10,000 official reviews. 10,000 verified reviews flooded Rotten Tomatoes to give it a 97%. Some of those include, we'll go through and read 3 of those who reviewed it highly. Toby, who gave it a 4.5 stars, said, quote, this is more like a music/concert type of film than an autobiography. Storyline definitely is too simple for Michael's life, but the dancing and shows really got me back into his performances. Definitely recommend to experience it if you like his performance. Kimberly, who gave it 5 stars, stated, quote, I was transformed back to little girl loving the Jackson 5. Michael Jackson and his music is the soundtrack of my life. The movie Michael showed me his heart and why he wanted to show love and peace through his music. And Joe W., who gave it a 4.5 stars, said, quote, usually, I'm heavily influenced by critic reviews. However, this time they were way off. This movie is exactly how it should be. The acting and storytelling were phenomenal. Part 2 of this movie will be interesting, as I am sure it will dig into the parts that critics want the most. which is an interesting way to jump off here because no one's talked about a sequel yet other than Coleman Domingo, who said if the film makes 700 million, he's heard there will be a sequel. I think the Hollywood Reporter went out on a limb in one of its recent articles and was like, more than likely will be at least one sequel to this because of how well it was received to start. So there's whispers of a sequel, and that fan seems to think that maybe they will get into some of that. Although we know, as we just talked about, we're going to go into that with this film and they had to take it out. But I want to ask the question. Why do we think critics were so critical of the omitted controversies and why fans were so forgiving?
They separate the art from the person, maybe. I think that enough people are willing to believe the estate. I think, or I think there was like something that came out that he was like, there's a certain island that he was actually helping
Keep kids away, or
Yeah.
I had seen that as well, but I don't know. Like, that's kind of the thing that's so tough about this is you don't know. Like,
Yeah.
there are things like I have a very specific opinion that I will share at the end because I want to make sure everyone gets the information before I like lead you to a perspective, right? Like, I want you by the end of everything I read, I want you to say, I think this, and then hear what I have to say about what I think. So that's why we're not to the opinions yet. But I have, so throughout my like, I guess like podcast listening and like my story enjoying life, I have listened to a number of like really interesting podcasts about the Michael Jackson era and like everything that was from the Jackson 5 until his death. And that came from a podcast from Wondery, which Wondery, some people love it, some people don't. Wondery is Amazon's like podcast hub, their distribution hub, and they have some money troubles now. So back in the day, like 3 or 4 years ago, this film was free on Spotify. It is now behind a paywall. I was able to somehow play it without being signed in on Apple. So maybe it's on Apple Podcast for free, but it's called Think Twice Michael Jackson. And it's hosted by two guys named Jay Smooth and Leon Nafak. And they are both like people who've been around the scene. Leon specifically, he is a journalist. He's the kind of the main narrator of the entire 10-part series. And they follow Michael Jackson from his time in the Jackson 5 all the way, again, till his death, as I just said before. But they give the cultural impact through Jay Smooth's input. So Jay Smooth is like a cultural commentator who's been on the scene, hosting radio shows, talking about whatever since the early 90s. So you have this reputable reporter who's been with, I think it was the Boston Globe and Slate, and I'm trying to see, there's another one here. The New York Observer. He's got multiple books out. So this is a guy who's like a reputable source of journalistic integrity mixed with this guy who's been on the scene and talked about this and lived this stuff. So this podcast is very in-depth and they talk about everything. But what I love about it is that while they give their opinions, they don't lead you one way or the other. Because when I listened to it, I remember at the end being like, I don't know. Because they did such a good job of being non-biased. They just gave you the information. So you want to believe one way, but the information could lead you another, but some of that information could be swayed by public opinion. So it's weird, right? But point in case is, I came into this week, I haven't seen the movie yet, but I've listened to that podcast, so I had some of that back information, right? And now having read up on it and having kind of seen everything and seeing how the response was, I think you said it right from the jump. Audiences, they want to separate the art from the artist because they don't want the who said it? Kimberly said his music is the soundtrack of my life. They don't want the creator, the orchestrator of the soundtrack of their life to be an awful person.
Yeah.
So they refuse to acknowledge it. So in many respects, and we'll talk about this a little bit later too, about like some reasons we might believe what I'm about to say. This is exactly what audiences wanted. This film being completely biased, and this film like completely washing away all of the controversies and giving fans what they thought they saw from Michael Jackson is exactly what they wanted. And this leads into my next question. Do we think people even want to see a true version of events when it comes to these movies? Do we think they even want that?
I do, but I don't know if that,
Yeah.
like I would rather that come out and like, cause I'm try to be as unbiased as I can. Like generally, like I have my opinions, but I try not to project them too badly.
Yeah.
Some people might call me out if I'm super passionate about something, but like I would prefer it to come out and I'll still listen to Michael Jackson, you know? Like
Yeah.
it's so I'm
Yeah.
curious, right? I would rather know the truth and still enjoy the art, right?
Yeah.
So no, because like at this stage he's not making the money, I think, and that doesn't make it any better. But if the argument is, "Oh, I don't want to give money to Kanye, like I'm not going to listen to Kanye because he said awful things, and I don't want Kanye to get the money."
Right.
Michael Jackson's dead, so I guess that's his estate's getting it, but I don't know if his estate or are a bunch of evil people, which they might
Yeah.
be if you want to categorize them that as that.
It's interesting because, so to mind you, for those listening at home, I feel like we have a really non-biased perspective, mainly because what he died when we were in elementary school. Like we were, that's how long it's been since he's passed away. It's been a very, very, very long time.
What year?
So 2009. You were in elementary.
Barely elementary school.
You're in elementary school. So like we were very young, right? So like we didn't grow up with that per se. And so we can kind of look at it without having that nostalgia. I guess like my thing is I asked the question and I don't want to answer it, but I cannot help but ask the question. If you can't even tell the story of that artist without removing, like the only way you can follow them is if you have to like remove and ignore all the bad they've done. You can't even acknowledge it. You can't say, well, I know they might have done that or they've been accused of that, but I still like the music. If you have to outright go out of your way to say it didn't happen, there's no way, just be a complete in denial about it. Is it worth? Is it worth telling a story without every aspect of that person? Is it worth following them if you have to just outright try to ignore the bad they've done because it's so abhorrent, if they did or they were accused of? That is where I asked the question and I'm like, you know, like, are we really there? Like, is that where we're at? So I don't think people do. I don't think people do. I think that there's a number that do. I think this movie proves that most people don't. They don't care. He's dead. Let the dead rest. We can't talk bad about the dead. And he's the soundtrack of my life. I don't want to hear it. I just want to see what critics were calling it, just a soundtrack movie. It is literally just him performing on stage. Like, that's all that I want to see, because that reminds me of a better time, per se, for those audiences who are older. But I don't know. I find it fascinating. And just, again, to answer the question, I don't think people do. And yeah, again, I pose the question, is it worth even following the person if you can't even tell their full story without sounding like a terrible person for following them? I don't know. Anything else, you would get looked a certain way.
Yeah, well, is it worth telling the story that we just that just came out?
That's what we've been asking since we saw the trailer. Is it even worth showing or like telling the story without?
You're going to omit so much. Right?
So we'll get on with this. We'll move on past this point, because really the answer is we can't answer. It's already been done and we didn't live in that time. So we're not going to sit here and try to culturally shame people who grew up with that, because we can't have that perspective. But we can go into some further details about things surrounding the film. So, important things to note here. We talked about this, again, as I just had said before, when the trailer first released, I should say, we talked about how there was some things omitted, but we specifically mentioned Paris Jackson, who is the daughter of Michael. Jafar Jackson is his nephew. So Paris Jackson had nothing to do with this film. The reason that's a big deal, and the reason that is an important note here, is because Coleman Domingo, late last year, probably around the September time, like the month of September, went out of his way to say, oh yeah, the kids are very involved and we all have a good relationship and they're very positive about the film. Which led Paris Jackson, if you remember, to come out publicly on her Instagram, I mind you, not like on a stage or anything, but to say, I don't know who you are. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I do not support this. She called out the actor to say, why are you making stuff up? Why are you being weird? So, mind you, Paris claims that she sent in notes from the original script, of which she called sugarcoated. She called the original script before all the reshoots. She said, this is not really what happened. And I think these are my notes. And she was outright told by the studio, we are not taking any of these notes into consideration. So according to her, she said, I'm out then. This is not my project. I don't want to be a part of this. Because obviously, and I think if I remember correctly, I don't have it written down here, she straight up said fans will like this. Like his fans will like this. But this is a very sugar-coated, not accurate depiction of what my father's life was like. And they just straight up told her, we're not listening to you. We don't care. And then Coleman Domingo is going out of his way saying that they have a good relationship when she claims that they didn't. So, again, that came out in about September-ish. But we'll go through some of her quotes. So she stated via Instagram, quote, "Don't be telling people I was helpful on the set of a movie I had 0% involvement in. That is so weird. I read one of the first drafts of the script, gave my notes, and what was dishonest / didn't sit right with me. And when they didn't address it, I moved on with my life." And then again, would go on to say that she was straight up told, we're not listening to you. So it is also important to note that Paris is currently in a legal battle with the Jackson estate over finances. And I put that in air quotes. So I don't know what that says about Paris and her perspective on the film. I don't know, because again, the Jackson estate is helping fund the film. So I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say, because you could take it into the perspective of her perspective of this film is being swayed by her fight with the Jackson estate. And it's not really how she feels about it. She's just mad at those who are in control of again, her father's money. So I want to put that out there because I want you to have your own opinion, but it is interesting that Paris is specifically like, it's sugarcoated, it's not accurate, I was not involved, but she's also in a lawsuit, so there's that, which is, anything Michael Jackson's going to have this, where there's just weird back and forth, and you got to make up your own decision. In other details, it's interesting to note the difference in critical / general audience response from this biopic and to a 4-hour 2019 HBO documentary about Michael Jackson titled Leaving Neverland. You might have tried to find this because this was a big note on social media last week and said, I want to watch this 4-hour documentary to see the opposite opinion. You can't. Let's get into why. The Rotten Tomatoes synopsis of Leaving Neverland is, quote, "Two men describe the alleged abuse they suffered at the hands of Michael Jackson. A series of interviews craft a portrait of deception, sustained exploitation, and complicated feelings." Again, the audience and critic reviews for this were exactly flipped. So remember, critics gave it a 39%. Audience gave the biopic a 97%. This Leaving Neverland documentary got a 98% from critics and a 26% from audiences. Bombed with the audiences. Critics loved it, which makes you wonder why. In a recent interview, Leaving Neverland director Dan Reed doubled down on his view of Jackson. And this is as this movie's coming out. This is in the last couple of days. So Leaving Neverland, a documentary you can't find, is getting popular in just out in the social media sphere, in this space. And Dan Reed goes on a phone call with the Hollywood Reporter to talk about what he felt when he saw the Michael biopic and his response to everything pop culture. So let's delve into some of his responses. When asked about what he learned when asked about what he learned while making Leaving Neverland, Reed stated, quote, "I learned Michael Jackson effed little boys." Straight out said it. Continuing, he said, quote, "That's what I learned. I don't make documentaries about celebrities or pop music or any kind of music. I make documentaries about terror attacks and war and stuff. And so as a filmmaker, this was off my usual beat, but I saw it as a chance to make something about child sexual abuse, which I had actually touched on in a previous film. Mind you," now that was the end of the quote. "Mind you, Leaving Neverland was taken down from HBO because the Jackson estate sued the production house after the documentary's release. Meaning, again, you can't even watch it if you wanted to. The reason the Jackson estate sued HBO is because back in the day, in the 90s, old MJ had a concert in Budapest. And I don't remember exactly what it was for. It was either to show the straight concert, or it was to have like a concert type film, and HBO wanted it on their platform in the 90s because it was Michael freaking Jackson. In that contract, the Jackson estate essentially held HBO to a certain little note. That was, you can't make Michael Jackson look bad. In 2019, almost 30 years after that contract, they pulled that on HBO and said, you still can't talk bad about Michael. And HBO folded and they took it down. So until 29, which is when the rights run up on Dan Reed's documentary, Leaving Neverland, you can't even find it. And then all of a sudden, less than a decade after this lawsuit, Michael debuts. And this estate makes however many hundreds of millions in a weekend. I call that interesting. But anyway, we'll move on. You can sense my opinion starting to bleed in just a little bit here, because I find the timing of that very,
You're not
very
being
odd.
unbiased, right?
I'm sorry. But I find that very, very interesting. Another thing, too, many, including Michael's own director, Antoine Fuqua, he labeled the quote unquote abused, the accusers, because we can't just straight out say because they weren't, because we haven't proven it yet, right? Those who have accused Michael, he called them gold diggers. Straight out, said they're in it for a payday. Reed responded directly to Fuqua, stating, quote, "How can you tell an authentic story about Michael Jackson without ever mentioning the fact that he was seriously accused of being a child molester? I just don't really see it. If anyone's making money, it's Michael Jackson's estate and the people who worked on this biographical picture. The victims, the protagonists of Leaving Neverland, have never made a cent from their accusations." In how the documentarian views the public response to this, or to his documentary and to this new biopic, he states, quote, "It says that people don't care that he was a child molester. Literally, people just don't care." A lot of stuff going on around this. Again, the only reason we're talking about this is because I find it fascinating that less than a decade after, they nuke this documentary out of existence for at least a decade, they show up with their own film, and there's no other perspective. Mind you, the documentary is 4 hours long. It won an Emmy, and the estate straight up called it fiction. It was one-sided. It wasn't real. So, Jake, we're back to our talking points here. Do we ever think that Michael was going to be a true non-biased perspective of the Jackson controversies, or on the Jackson controversies? Because remember, the original script reportedly had the controversies in some way, shape, or form in it before they had to reshoot it. Do we think that was ever the intention?
I don't think it was like full blown, like one way. I think that when they had questionable things in there from an estate viewpoint, that I think would have I think it would have made the movie across the board. Everybody would have liked it, I would have said. But I don't think on this scale we'd ever see the documentary level stuff. I just don't think on this scale on this stage, that we would see everything.
It was always going to be a little biased, but what I mean by true is, are they going to show the extent of which it went, right? Not like the abuse, but what I mean is like how it took over pop culture, because a lot of people thought he did it. And regardless of what viewpoint you show Michael in, are you going to show the public response to his very serious accusations? Was that ever something they were going to do? And the answer, I think, is no. If I'm putting my tinfoil hat on, because this is a major motion picture, okay? Tinfoil hat. I'm not saying this is explicitly what happened, but I would not be shocked. So I want to put that out there. I'm not saying this is what they did. Tinfoil hat, straight up conspiracy. The film was always going to be around $200 million. You're telling me, with Universal, with Lionsgate, with their legal teams, and with the literal Jackson estate helping you make the movie, you didn't know that the same estate that was in this lawsuit 30 years ago did not know that they could not dramatize a certain victims or accusers' experience. You're telling me they didn't know that from the beginning? You're telling me someone from Universal didn't think to look through those court cases? Someone from the estate didn't think to look back and see what they could and couldn't do until after they shot it? Tinfoil hat here, they never shot it. Really? If I'm being completely conspiracy theory, I think they made it up. I think they said that so people will give them kind of like an out. Well, they did shoot it. Well, they did try. And then it was illegal. And they realized it's a little odd. Like, again, I'm not accusing them of doing that. But if I'm really looking into it and like I'm putting, again, tinfoil hat, just thinking it through, would we be shocked if a major corporate entity in a major estate who's looking to gain a ton of money from this guy's name will go out on a limb and say, well, we tried to be non-biased, but it's illegal, so we just went with what we could? And just completely lied?
Maybe. No, I think somebody had to have known, and they tried to get by.
And that's probably the answer, is they thought they could get around it, and then they realized they couldn't super late, and then that's why, because it did push the film back about a year. So that's the thing too. But it's just like, when you look at it, it is just odd that producers in the Jackson estate then all of a sudden realized, oh, we can't do that. Like, what do you mean? Like, how do you not know that? How
Don't
do you
you have
make
legal departments?
Yes, like each probably Lionsgate and Universal both have legal. The Jackson Estate has probably a ton of them on tap, and you don't know? That's just odd to me. Like that is your own lawsuit. You don't know the ramifications of the lawsuit that your own estate was involved in. Odd. I just call that odd. And I bring that up again just to say I don't think they were ever going to be non-biased. And if I'm putting on my conspiracy theory hat, I think they lied. Again, that's if I'm being conspiratorial. That's if I'm not accusing them of that because one, I have no proof, and two, I would hope they wouldn't. But either way, I don't think they were ever going to be. Even if they did show some of it, I think they were going to show Michael in a very sympathetic light, regardless. Because he was a very it's pretty well recorded that he was an abused figure as a kid. Like he went through a lot, and that's a lot of what people use as like not an excuse, but like he didn't do anything to these children. He just liked being around them because that was his escape from the abuse he held. Like it was a mental state thing. Like he never did anything to them.
That's what a lot of people still believe.
Yes,
right?
that is like it's not an excuse per se, but that's their reasoning. Like, oh yes, he was around kids, but it was because he felt safe around them. He never would do that because of the things he went through, and that could be true. We don't know, but there's a lot of stuff here. But moving on to the next part of this, we're talking about these controversies. Why do we think critics are so critical about this information being omitted? These controversies, and like fans are so forgiving. Like, why do we think, let's start with the first one. Why do we think critics are so critical about this omitted information?
I mean, are critics critical? Are critics because they value truth? I mean, does it boil down to like the nature of the kind of person that reviews? Or is it the fact that most critics have a vendetta against Michael Jackson?
Which would be so odd. Like, why would critics of all people? And the thing is, too, is like, if this is the thing that any critic ever is trying to put as their moral high ground, that's odd because they have let a lot slip. Like when has a critic ever been moral high ground on anything? Like, that's kind of the thing is like, this would be just such an odd thing for like the most pompous group of people in all of entertainment to say, actually, it's for the greater good. No, you've never cared about the greater good ever. You care if a film is artsy or not. So it's like it's odd that like this would be. So I asked the question more to be like, why do they care so much about this information being omitted? And on top of it too, a lot of these critics, I would assume, especially like Roger Ebert, they lived it just like the fans.
Yeah,
they were there just like the fans. Why are they so much more critical about it? Besides the fact that they're critics, like I get it, like that's their job, but they lived it just the same. Why do they have such different perspectives on it? Are critics just looking for something to be mad about? Which is a very viable response.
Just like, are all critics looking for something to critique?
That I don't think that's like I know this is gonna sound really dumb. I don't think that's why you be a critic. You know, like
I don't know, man. I like to complain.
I know. I don't.
That's the whole point.
I get like it's called a movie critic, and the whole point is like you're supposed to look at it. But I feel like a movie critic, critics in thought are supposed to be the leading opinion on movies before they come out, right? Like they are the people who go there with a non-biased opinion and they say, and that's why I think that critics should probably be a lot more forgiving because as we talked about many a time on the show, films are meant to be for fun. They're meant to tell stories.
What?
These are glorified campfire stories, trying to scare each other or trying to make each other feel better. So it's like, that's why like I have this thing against pompous filmmakers or film critics or just like, you know, is this a Darren Aronofsky? And was it, you know, did you look at the frame rate of this specific shot? And, you know, and like the same people who will look at that and then look at like, name a fun movie like Megamind, Minecraft, Megamind. And they'll be like, that's not art, but Citizen Kane was. And it's like, yes, Citizen Kane was trying to be artsy.
Yeah.
But Megamind is the same art style. It's just doing a different thing, right? So I have a personal vendetta against people like that. And so that's probably why my opinion is so swayed on what critics are supposed to be versus what they actually are. So more than likely the answer to this question is because they're trying to find something to be critical about because it's their job. Like that's probably what, even if I think that's the wrong way to be a critic, that's probably why. However, I'm so interested in why fans are just so willing to just forgive.
Ryan doesn't forgive. He doesn't even forget.
I never forget. But no, I mean, seriously, like, this is arguably one of the worst atrocities a human being could ever be accused of, let alone commit.
Yeah.
Why are we so willing to just let this go? I understand he's not been proven, and I'm not trying to say we should hold him because he's passed on. There's no way we can hold him accountable. But at the end of the day, the question I asked earlier is like, do you even want to be associated in a fandom with a guy that you have to ignore half of his existence because half of his existence is just absolutely tainted by controversies that may or may not be true? You have to completely ignore it.
We could arrest his hologram.
Yeah, right. I'm not saying there's any justice to be held, and I'm not saying you shouldn't like Michael Jackson or you shouldn't buy things Michael Jackson because the estate's going to make money anyway. But I just don't, I hate this social commentary of, well, it was a long time ago. Well, these people just want to make money off of his name. Well, it's like there are so many accusers. In the same vein that we have to sit here and say, well, he's accused, we can't say he did it. It should be the exact same the other way. Well, he was accused, we can't say he didn't. Because the thing is, he wasn't found not guilty in a criminal charge. He was found not guilty in a libel suit.
Right.
So that's massively different. I don't know. I'm gonna finally give my opinion.
Uh-oh.
I know.
He's
I'm doing it. If it walks like a duck,
my God.
and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. After listening through a lot of stuff, after reading all this stuff, specifically, like the thing that kind of sealed it was the Dan Reed, his interview. Not because I feel like everything he was saying was exactly what happened. Because again, there's so much that like is like, maybe, maybe not. And yes, the think twice. In my mind, there are so many accusers, and that alone isn't why I think that he did it. But when you look at the scope of it, right? Like I'm not going to sit here and say, well, he was accused 5 times, so he probably did it, because that's not it. But the response from the estate, trying so hard to silence these accusations from the very beginning. On top of it, there's a story I haven't told, and it's from Think Twice. So we have, to outline here, we have the amount of accusations, which isn't a seller, right? But that is a piece of information. We have the estate's constant trying to guard him from things. Instead of outright saying it didn't happen, they are silencing the opposite opinion, which is a little odd. But thirdly, in Think Twice, they tell a story about Michael Jackson in the early 90s making and starring in a music video. And in that music video, and I cannot remember the song, but please go listen to Think Twice because it's so good and they outline it so much better than I do. But the video was going to be about Michael Jackson, and he is surrounded. He's in this giant mansion, and he's almost like a Frankenstein figure in this, where he's himself, but he's surrounded by these adults out of this house, and they have pitchforks and guns and torches, and they're trying to kill him. They're like, get the weirdo, and they're calling him names and stuff. And who comes to his defense? Children. All the town's children run around in this music video, and what was supposed to happen. And they're supposed to say, no, you don't understand. And Michael was going to verbatim say, no, children, they will not understand. Just kind of this monologue. Do you know why that never released?
Why is that, Ryan?
The dude was accused. The accusations came out, and he stopped making the video. To me, that sounds like he was trying to get ahead of something.
Yeah.
So, all said, I asked the question, and I've asked it multiple times today, and I asked it in September, and after listening to everything, reading as much as I could, and just formulating an opinion. Is the story worth telling if you can't tell it all? Is a guy worth following if you have to completely omit, ignore, and deny the more than half of his career that was dominated by atrocities, accusations of atrocities? I have a very specific, again, my answer is no. My answer is he's probably not worth following, or at least not worth, you shouldn't just deny it, but people will. So I don't know. I think that all this to say, he probably did it.
Well, Ryan,
but we don't know. He wasn't accused. He wasn't found criminal, or he wasn't found liable in the court of law. He wasn't charged criminally. You know, there's so many things. Again, I listened to that podcast and I came away with it a couple years ago thinking, I don't know. And only after certain other information did I like make an opinion. So please go listen, go watch, find, like, if there's a way to pirate that documentary, find that, watch the biopic, listen to Think
Just telling
Twice.
people to do it.
I'm serious. Like, take as much information as you can and formulate your own opinion. You know, like, I like, argue with me if you want. Like, I'm not going to be upset if you have an opposite opinion, but that's how I feel about it. And I just find this whole thing super fascinating because, of course, everything Michael Jackson has to be complicated. And just like his life, the film, the making of the film, his familial response to the film, and then critic and audience response, all super complicated and all divisive and all not on the same page. And I find that fascinating. Even in death, he still influences pop culture in a way that no one else can. So anyway, with that being said, we'll wrap out our second segment here. What would we expect from a sequel? Because now we know they really can't unless they find a workaround in the next year and a half, 2 years. They can't really tell the story that follows 1988 or 89. Not in a way that would actually do it justice.
Right.
So what do we expect?
Another tour style video, or another tour style movie. Just another.
But how?
Like, well, the other concerts, I would suppose. Like his later years, maybe.
Those concerts are so important to his story because he had to go overseas to try to revamp his career because the controversies hurt his public image.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's like that outlined again in Think Twice. Go listen. They talk about it. Like that 1993 accusation in court battle, while he still had a ton of backing and he was still going to sell out crowds, he had to go overseas, and they even talk about how his music was kind of like, he wasn't in a great spot and his music wasn't as good. And that's probably super opinionated to the person who said it in the show, but you get what I'm saying. It's like things started going downhill after that. How can you possibly show those concerts without the surrounding factors? That's why I'm interested.
There are like movies or like live, and it's just like the concerts live.
Yeah.
But that's what I think a lot of people were getting at. Is like, this is just a concert movie, just a performance movie, and I think it worked out, right? That's what they want to see. It's what audiences just they just want to reminisce about the concerts or listen to the songs on the big screen. And
if they keep going, they're gonna have to show his death somehow, and even that's a controversial topic. Is like, was he killed? Wasn't his doctor imprisoned?
That's what people say.
Like,
I don't know if he was or not.
He was taking propofol at home, which, if you've never seen that Robin Williams clip where he's talking about having been on it for open heart surgery before he passed, and how Jackson, like, this is a medicine that's supposed to be taken with a doctor's oversight in a hospital, and he was taking it at home. He
was convicted for administering a lethal dose of anesthetic propofol to treat insomnia.
Yeah, right. So how are you going to, and some people say he was killed because of his beliefs, and he was going to because there's something to connect with, like, he was going to take all his music back, and like, Sony didn't want to lose. There's controversy, or there's conspiracy that he was murdered because of what he was going to do, and Sony was going to lose because Sony has the right to his music catalog. And so they were going to lose all that if he whatever. And there's just a lot of really odd conspiracies because, again, in death, the man is unknown. Like, in death, the man is just as controversial and just as convoluted as ever. So no one knows. But when we get to that point, how do you tell the controversies? How do you tell his resurgence in the early 2000s? And then how do you tell his death? And I think it's going to be probably just as disappointing, at least in sound, at least in theory, because, again, I haven't seen the movie. But it's probably going to be just as disappointing as critics thought it would be for this one, for those as well.
He did admit that he did it. Tried to treat him with other drugs, and Jackson insisted on taking propofol. So,
according to his doctor.
Yeah. According to a police affidavit as well. So I don't know if that means. But that was what he's getting at, is he did do it, whether or not Michael wanted it or whatever, and he might have told him. But anyway,
you're a doctor. Like, it's your call. Like, that's what's crazy about that, is it's like that.
There's a level of malpractice at that stage, right? Like, it'll kill him. I guess like there's a point in which
Yeah, but
you
it
wouldn't.
doesn't matter who your patient is. Like the Hippocratic Oath, right? Do no harm.
Yeah.
Like even if the guy is Michael Jackson, that's interesting. Which is where the conspiracies come in, because it's odd. Like, you're a doctor, dude, but
Yeah.
who knows? I feel like everyone has a certain price to some extent, and he was probably getting paid a lot more than his normal wages just to do whatever Michael asked him. So that's what is that? Occam's razor is like the simplest answer is usually the most likely. And it's like that. If we're following that, like we kind of always do that, where we go into the conspiracy and then we hit the Occam's razor to be like, well, that's probably what it was. More than likely, probably what happened is he was getting paid a lot of money.
Always the easiest.
To do whatever Michael said, and that it killed him. And so the malpractice is that he wasn't being a proper doctor and he's just doing whatever he said. But yeah. Who knows? Anything else we want to talk about before we get out of here into our third segment, I should say?
I probably won't watch Michael unless the part 2 has a lot more juicy truths or documentary style.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we'll ever see it.
I feel hypocritical.
The oath?
Yeah, the oath? I'm taking the oath right now. No, just kidding. A white coat materializes.
Whoa.
Stethoscope around the neck. Oh, doctor. No.
Dr. Mario.
No.
Dr. Ryan.
Yeah, but can you imagine? Excuse me, Dr. Gum. No, don't call me that. Anyway, where was I going? Oh, yeah. I would feel hypocritical not seeing this other perspective. Like, that's kind of my thing is like, I want to watch the documentary. I've listened to Dan Reed and the documentary's director and his whatever from the Hollywood Reporter. I've seen the non-biased podcast. It's like, I kind of am like, okay, if I'm doing this, I should take it the whole way and see the bias from the other side and then really get my perspective that way, even though that might not be a really viable option in terms of getting viable information is from the man's biopic. But you get what I'm saying. I feel like I probably will watch it just to say that I don't want to be that way. I don't want to. It's like saying you only get your news from one site.
TikTok?
Yeah, I get it from TikTok, or I get it from Fox, or I get it from CNN. Like, get it from multiple places, and I feel like otherwise you are going to be biased to some extent.
Instagram Reels.
Yeah, right. Twitter. Anyway, with that out of the way, I'll probably watch it. Let's get into our third segment, which is always what you should know before you go. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Screen. This is segment 3. This is how we get you guys out of here. For those who are new, we always round out our show by giving you the best of the rest of the news from this past week. So we picked the top between 5 and 8 headlines that weren't really worthy of a major segment, but we give them to you very quickly. We kind of give our opinion, and we make sure you are staying in the know. But before we get to that, I always like to take this time just to very quickly say thank you just for being here. Like, we are very understanding and very appreciative of the fact that you give us your time, regardless of if it's once or if it's once a week, right? You being here and you allowing us to do this, especially if you've got an hour, 13 minutes in, it's really kind of crazy that you'd sit and listen to us for 70 plus minutes. And so we want to make sure that we are expressing our gratitude to you and for allowing us to be here. For me, I say every week, I'm here with 2 of my best friends. And this is just the time of my life every Monday, every week leading up, talking, paying attention to the news, and then being able to get here, a culmination of every single week, I should say, to start the week, every Monday afternoon, evening, to sit and talk to my friends about the thing I care about the most, storytelling, and the things that go on surrounding the storytelling process, and us being able to give our opinions and just be silly and just enjoy and have a time. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. Like, subscribe, sub, follow, share, comment, anything that you can do. It really does help. And again, I cannot thank you enough. Just thank you for being here. And with that out of the way, let's get you out of here. And we'll see you next week after we talk about the rest from entertainment. Okay, Jake. According to rumor, Savage Hulk is apparently going to finally be returning to our screens in the upcoming Spider-Man Brand New Day, as Hasbro's upcoming Marvel Legends toy line seems to contain the anger management problem version of the character. Are we hyped? Which is just because something we've kind of heard for a while is that like Savage Hulk was going to be in this film, but now internet sleuths and super fans alike were like, Hasbro's got the Savage Hulk in their next line, and that seemingly is like, the reason that they're like, that's got to be proof. Let's say it's true. We excited for Savage Hulk?
Yeah, how I want to know how he gets to that point.
How does he lose control?
Right. And I mean, it's got to be crazy because even the Hulk we've seen lately with Ruffalo, like he's tamer
Yeah.
than Norton's,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know. Like we're seeing Savage Hulk in these toy sets, which were, I guess, released early.
They're a new line. I think they might be trying to hype them up and people notice them. There's ways to figure out, like there's patents that you can get like for certain things, and they figured them out through that way. It's really odd, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, and then I think like maybe even Scorpion was in it, or no, yeah, that is straight up set like Legends series, Spider-Man Brand New Day, like straight called out. Oh man, 33 photos. Is it just? Yep, Spider-Man. Sorry, I'm looking through the Hasbro toys now. That Spider-Man character's actually sick.
Action figure.
Yeah. Scorpion's in it. Brand New Day. Got a black suit. I got a black suit. Weird.
Do you find it on Hasbro itself?
I'm on IGN. I don't know the black suit. But anyway, yeah, though. I'm more interested in knowing how he turns. Very interesting. But they are like fighting in one of the sets, which is what I believe everybody's into. Let's see. And then Tarantula was another one that people thought was odd that they were coming out with. Like practically confirming Tarantula's going to be in it.
I feel
there was a promo.
I fear they're going to have an overabundance of villains. Like, are we about to run into Spider-Man 3, like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3 again, where it's like way too many, like an oversaturation of villain?
There's 2 months ago, this like came out.
Here, hold on, I'm adding to stage.
Image.
Yeah.
Tarantula, Scorpion, like Hulk, Boomerang, Spider-Man. That was 2 months ago, and it was like a Brand New Day promo. That's a Reddit post, so it could be fake, but
I do wonder if this is true because we've seen a number of these people in the trailer, and so I wonder if like this is like a way to show, like, okay, we're underground, like back to the underground Spidey, or like the main, you know what I'm talking about, like the normal everyday Spider-Man, and here are the villains in the last 4 years that he's run across, and so we're gonna show them. I feel like this is more of a montage thing. Like maybe there's like a couple that you see a few fight scenes with, but then it's like a culmination in like, okay, he ran through Boomerang, he ran through Tarantula, and okay, here's Scorpion. This is modern day. He's like, and then that's why the Punisher's there in the trailer, where, you know what I'm saying? Where like they're that fight scene where they're chasing Scorpion. Like I feel like that could be where we are in this whole thing. It's like maybe that's why there's so many villains. I would hope so. If there is an overabundance of villains, I would be kind of upset, because it's just like that's where you really lose. The best part about the 3 that came out before is that they had kind of like a central villain. The last one had a lot of villains in it, like Doc Ock, but that was a lot of fan service. Like you were happy. The Green Goblin was still the main villain, like, which was sick. But like you saw these other villains that were again very fan servicey, but they didn't really take the spotlight away. I worry that you'll have too many.
But so that was just a promo, and then you've got Hulk and Scorpion as the Hasbro characters. But we're gonna see a bunch of different ones, I think. So I'm excited because these characters haven't been seen in a long time, if ever.
Yeah, I agree. Up next, Ellen DeGeneres is reportedly returning as the ever-lovable character Dory in an upcoming Finding Nemo short from Pixar. And the funniest thing is, when I first saw this, it was on Instagram, actually. It was from Screen Thrill, or are they Trill or Thrill? I feel like I do this every time, but they're one of our favorites that we like to use, and they're usually very accurate. I'm going to say Thrill because that makes more sense. They posted one, in the headline that they had posted was Ellen DeGeneres to torment Pixar employees again, returning for the, and I thought that was hilarious. But are we excited for more Finding Nemo?
What's a short film nowadays? Like, what are
I
people
think like
constituting a?
Mater's Tall Tales, where it's like a series of whatever,
Yeah.
but maybe instead of it being like a series of like 5-minute shorts, maybe it'll be like one 15-minute. Like it just said a short film. So it could
Yeah.
be like, I would say over under 10 minutes is probably what it'll end up being. But
Okay.
I like Dory. I like Finding Nemo. I thought that
Yeah.
the sequel was Finding Dory was pretty good. And I don't know,
Yeah.
like this is one of those where it's like, you know, if you're going to cash cow something, at least do it in a way that makes sense. Like again, Mater's Tall Tales was perfect. Like Finding Dory was pretty good. I think a short film following more Nemo would be fun.
Yeah.
Animated, great.
So it's a Dory short though. I mean, or is it just?
The way it was written was in the Finding Nemo universe. Not a clue. No idea.
Poor workers, I guess. I don't know.
Oh.
There's a joke in there for Ellen being evil, but
yeah.
Island.
I love what's funny. I love what's funny is she got accused for that, and
Yeah.
it was so accurate and on the money that she just faded into the ether.
Yeah.
She didn't try returns. She didn't try to fight it. She was just like, and she just left. Like, I'm gone. I think she might have had one or two quotes after that, but literally that's all she did
Yep.
after she got accused because she was so guilty. Anywho, enough about the guilt and the accusations and stuff because we've talked about that a lot. Let's move on to the next one. According to a report, a man was arrested in Singapore last week for being the culprit behind Paramount's leaked Aang: The Last Airbender, with investigation revealing he gained, quote, unauthorized remote access to Paramount servers. I want to remind our audiences at home that this is the same company that said it had to have been someone internally.
Had to.
Less than a week after they make that claim, they say actually it wasn't anyone in here. It was a guy from Singapore. Now, could someone have leaked it to the guy from Singapore? Maybe. But it is ironic. He's serving like legit jail time, a fine, or both. Like the guy is like in deep, deep trouble. But again, the timeline of events is hilarious. It's like film gets leaked, Paramount scrambles. Hey, we're actually not sure it was a leak. Which one of you did it? And then like 3 days after they're blaming their internal team, they're like, actually, we found the guy. It was a server problem.
I guess from an IT standpoint, it could have been remote access to a server, could be phishing, could be login information off a phishing email.
Can you imagine like you are a hacker like that, or you're like, what? There's a name for it in the industry, and I fail to remember, but they have like a really specific name for people who are trying to like fish for information like that. You reel in that information and you log into Paramount servers, and you're like, what can I find? And you find a random MP4, and you're like, press play, and it's literally just a full movie. You're like, oh, that. I think that'd be now question. Over under, how long do you sit? You are the scammer. You are the guy that's hacked into the mainframe. Whatever, insert early 2000s, whatever. You find it, you press play to see what it is, and you see some of it. How long are you sitting and watching before you're like, I got to get out of here with this?
You're pulling and downloading as fast as you can, regardless of what.
For the funny image.
I mean, you make it to the title card.
Jake's saying none. He's saying maybe 15 seconds.
Yeah.
I love the idea that a guy's like, all right, let me get in here. He presses play, like, what is this? And he's like, I like Avatar. And he looks down, he's like, 30 minutes. He's been watching a movie this entire time. Download, leave. He'd be found by then, but I do love that imagery.
No. I don't think he makes it past. For your sake, it's title card, then you're out of there.
Yeah, right, because you don't want to get tracked back, but it is pretty funny.
But it's actively like Control A and then move.
Mine, yeah,
immediately.
Copy,
immediately.
Yeah.
But no, it's not that because it's all code and you actually had to type in the full.
Right, of course. But I do want to again point out that this is the same company. The reason this is a controversy and the reason why people think they might have leaked it is because the team was mad and technically has a reason to have leaked it because they were supposed to get a theatrical release in the same company that's like, when we get Warner Brothers, we'll release 30 films a year or more. That same company told Aang's creators that they couldn't get a theatrical release, and that's why people think that the animators might have released it is because they're mad. The irony is very strong with this one, and I really enjoy it because, burn corporate. No, I'm just kidding. But it is pretty funny. Anywho, moving down the line here. James Gunn confirmed that the upcoming body horror Clayface is actually the first story in the chronological order of the DCU, meaning that he isn't in the Robert Pattinson-led Elseworld universe. Jake, I know you're disappointed.
Yeah, I was hoping. I want to see more Pattinson.
We will soon. Next year, I think. Next October. Not
can't
soon
wait.
enough. Yeah, I just feel like after seeing the trailer that Clayface fits the vibe of the Robert Pattinson.
A whole lot more.
Yeah. But the thing is too, is like I feel like we're also a little bit swayed because the only few things DCU we've seen have been goofy or upbeat. Like Peacemaker was more silly.
Yep.
And Superman was more like there's Creature Commandos and like which was a little bit more serious, but that's an animation, so it's kind of like the only live action anything we've seen has been either silly or
But the animation was still like still goofy. Still like could laugh at.
Right. Like, well, it's James
Absurd.
Gunn. Like anything that man
it's
touches is
absurd.
going to be somewhat comedic, like because he's a funny guy. But
Right.
I don't know. I do agree with you. It fits the vibe of Elseworld a lot better than the DCU that we've seen thus far. But maybe this is kind of a trendsetter. Maybe this is like he's always said, if I remember correctly, we go back. He did say that like it's not going to be like the MCU. It's like everything's kind of connected, but like there are one-off stories that can have its own vibe and have its own genre and be in the DCU, but not. So this is probably him proving that, but it is interesting.
Finally, what I've been waiting for.
Jake, yeah, you led with this one. The puppeteer behind Project Hail Mary's Rocky, James Ortiz, is reportedly up for an Oscar nomination. Puppeteers who also voice their own characters are seen as actors by the Academy, which means he could win Best Supporting Actor at the Academy Awards next March.
Amaze.
It's fantastic. How?
I mean, they gotta have him there.
Oh, of course. It's going to be an animation though. It's going to be like a thing that they show in between awards. I do like it though, just because what will this do for puppetry in film? Like if we're talking about an era that people are complaining that CGI, like we went so far into CGI being accessible that it went from like, again, I know I'm going to always reference Transformers, but like think about CGI and Transformers in 2007 and 9 and like when you had these movies and it was like they looked super hyper realistic. We've gotten so accessible and so mainstream and like with the CGI process that we've gone the opposite direction that now it's too CGI. Like now obviously everything looks super not real. So this being mostly puppet with some CGI moments where they couldn't puppeteer the movements of Rocky. Do we think that this win, if say he wins, let's just dream big. Say Ortiz wins. Do we think that this will kind of open the floodgates for more practical effects specifically from like these types of characters where you can have a puppet?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think it'll open the door for more puppetry because like we've gone so far into the CGI and the AI that people are going to want the physical again, right?
Oh
We're seeing it with smartphones.
Yeah.
Landlines are coming back. A company just started selling landline phones again, and it's not like you plug it into the wall, and I don't really. I think it's an eSIM. But you have to have the phone, like a landline, to call on it. I think that's how it is. I don't know if you have to plug it into the landline. I really don't, because you can still pay for a normal landline. Like that's not stopping you. But I think the appeal of this one was it's like kind of like that halfway in between where it was a wireless and you could take it off and you go talk around, like through your house with it.
If I ever get to a point, we've talked about this off camera, and I know that this is like way like out of what we're talking about here, because we're talking about to go back to this really quick. I think that this will prove that it's doable. That like non-traditional acting and non-traditional like in more practical effects can win, and the Oscars will nominate, and the Oscars will they will acknowledge that that's just as much an art form, just as much of a performative art as anything else, which we haven't seen, right? Mm-hmm. But going back to this, I love that like physical media and stuff. We've talked about that a little bit on the show. This is just a further extension of that conversation. I love that that's coming back because when I have no interest in like leaving my job in the near future, right? Like I like my job. Like I if something crazy pops up, maybe, but like I'm fine where I'm at, right?
Yep.
I work in social media, which is like probably the biggest issue and blessing of my job because like I get to be creative all the time and I get to see in real time when things work and they don't. And that's fun. Like that's fun. Like mostly a videographer, some video or like some vertical video, mostly photographer, decent amount of graphic design. Like that's fun. But it is hard, like on the brain, because you're constantly, when you run as many as I do, I have multiple schools that I run socials for. So it's like when I do that, like it is like the constant dopamine hit of like, oh, this one's doing well. Oh, this one's, especially when there's like an event coming up and you have multiple posts going up a day. And so it's like, I cannot wait until I have a house and I'm not doing social media work because I'm going to get it's not a smartphone, but it's, what is it called? What's the phone brand that you like? It is a smartphone, but it's no phone? No, not no phone. What is that called?
Nothing phone is a phone. It's an Android phone. Like it's not like you wouldn't get it if you want to stay off social media because it's like
It's
any
not that
other
I
Android.
wouldn't. It's not that I wouldn't want to stay off of social media, but I would want to like go back. Like this, my phone, which is on the floor, is so optimized for socials and it's so fast. Like I would want to get something like less than. It's like getting a less smartwatch. You know what I'm saying? Like you would instead you get like a Fitbit, so it keeps track of your whatever, but like it doesn't constantly ping you. So it's like I would love to do that. And so if I ever get a house, to expand upon that, right? Maybe get like a flip phone instead or whatever. But like
I want one of them. I don't remember what they're
they
called.
slide
Like,
up and they have the keyboard inside.
but I need the horizontal ones. I don't
Yeah.
like the vertical where it slides vertically. I want one that I turn sideways and like flip the keyboard up and it's both thumbs
I had one of those when
horizontally.
I was a kid. When my
I
first
don't
phone was that.
know what they're called, but also they didn't make them late enough, late in the
I think they
so
were
now that
Nokias.
the cell towers don't support them. You can't actually text or have a data plan or any plan whatsoever for those phones because the towers don't support them anymore.
Crazy, because I did when I was a kid. Like we texted
Yeah.
all the time. Like we the way that
Well,
we had
3G is just not a thing. That's why.
right, it doesn't exist anymore. But the thing is that like when I was a kid, like the keyboard was so like that's how you did everything. But it was so small that like if you wanted to text, you had to like double tap like certain keys to get because
Yeah.
they had multiple letters
Well,
on
yeah.
one key.
I'm talking about the full keyboard too, though. Like,
I
that's
know.
what
See, the one I had didn't. It was too small. But it's like I remember I so vividly like that is why texting in the early 2000s and the early 2010s was as broken as it was, and why like slang talk or text talk was a thing is because it was so annoying getting to every letter that you just abbreviated everything. And so like that was fun. But going back to this landline thing, I cannot wait until I have a house at some point in my lifetime because I would get a landline. I would get like what I was saying with like the Fitbit. I'd get like a flip phone or something that I could still kind of look at stuff so I'm not completely disconnected. So I could still do some form of my job. But most of my social media stuff would be like on a tablet, like a work tablet or a work laptop or something. And it's like, but outside of those, I get texts, I get calls, and I get maybe a few notifications on my flip phone or whatever phone. And then I have a Fitbit and I have a landline.
It's going back to pagers, guys.
Legitimate. Look, I don't know about pagers, but like I would love that because it's like I'm gonna get a CD player and a DVD player and just collect physical media. Like I want that. That is like my dream life. Is I want to get my house. I want to get physical media. I want to kind of like revert back a little bit and get less tech, but not be completely disconnected. Like that, what you're describing is the perfect mix of what I want everything to be for me. Is like if I'm trying to post, I have devices that can do that. And if I need to, I can. Obviously, we're creative, so I'm gonna have like I have a nice PC. I'm gonna have a nice laptop. Like those things will still be accessible. But when I want to disconnect, it's not like I'm carrying around a computer in my pocket. That is what I strive for because you know how
I think we'll see phones come out.
Yeah,
like what we're wanting.
Peaceful. That life will be so peaceful. But anyway,
there's no reason why you can't do that to your phone now. It's just something about the tactile feel that I think most people are after.
You can turn off all the notifications, but I don't know. Like you're
delete all the apps.
You can, but well, I can't because I have a job that requires me to have all the apps. Got Job. Anyway,
Ryan sends me stuff for the podcast. How the heck am I going to see that?
I genuinely, that's how I get a lot of this information is from that. But anyway, and the Daily's newsletter in my email inbox every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Not sponsored, but you can sponsor us. But anyway, moving on.
Domino's too. I'm hungry.
You say Domino's? Can you imagine? It's like our first break is like, ever feel overwhelmed by all the different news sources? Get the Daily's newsletter. And it's like the next is like Domino's. Straight up, just that. You know what I'm talking about? Their marketing campaign?
Nope.
Anyway,
Never
that
heard
might
of
be
it.
a one of one.
Ads don't work
Anyway.
on me.
Name every ad then. No, just kidding.
Seen
Anyway,
every
our last piece of info on today's episode, and then we'll get you out of here literally in the next like 90 seconds to 2 minutes.
Literally.
We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but Warner Brothers shareholders side with the Institutional Shareholder Services, or the ISS, in their recommendation, so they approve the Paramount bid, but they reject Zaslav's massive golden parachute. Oh boy, it happened. That was our major news segment like 2 weeks ago. How do we feel about that? Yeah. I agree. Yes, Emily, I agree. This is huge because it's the thing is that like again we talked about it before is like every business bro or every like Wall Street wannabe is like, I want to be Zaslav because he can turn a bad product into $1 billion. No, you can't. No, you can't, because that shareholders will say, nah, dude, screw you. Like, I love it. I just think this is such a fun, like, and now in the grand scheme of things, he's going to get like 300 million. Like, he's still going to make a lot of money. But I love the idea that these shareholders are going to hold this guy somewhat accountable. In the realm of justice, this is so minuscule.
Justice.
In the realm of, in the universe that is justice, it's so tiny. But it's nice to see someone getting something in some form of retribution, right? Like, this is, I love it.
Yeah. Amen. Glass house, dog.
Listen, man, I be throwing all kinds of stones.
Rocks?
So, no lie. I be throwing them stones.
Rolling Stones. Anyway.
Literally, when you said that, the only thing that came to my head was Limp Bizkit. Rolling. God. What do you guys know about the what do they do?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You're talking about the new metal? The new metal? The thing in the early 2000s, every new metal band was just like, they would go up to cameras, like every photography, they'd be like, or, no, hold on, it's like in the fit. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? Someone at home
Isn't there
does.
like a secret, like Illuminati thing that people do?
Yeah,
like
it's
on
the eye.
Conan shows and
It's
stuff?
the eye, right? Like that. Like
That's what it is.
No. Fred Durst. If Fred Durst is in the Illuminati, that'd be the funniest thing ever, dude.
He's actually the spokesperson.
Yeah, just join the Illuminati. Like just like that the entire time. Fred Durst of the Illuminati. Yeah.
Are you joining?
It's so funny, dude. Anyway, let's get out of here. So we'll see you guys next week. Thank you guys so much for watching. Goodbye.